A century holds such a vast richness of life, such a vast amount of days, such a vast amount of moments. The chain of the present forges link after link. Daughters and sons become wives and husbands, become mothers and fathers, become grandmas and granddads. Each generation hold on to those that follow closely, for they are the future and the hope of what is to come. Each generation holds on to those they follow closely, for they are the past, the foundations they stand on.
In 1910, in Barnsley, there were over 60 working pits in the area, and it's accounted for 30,000 jobs.
I waited and waited for that first day. I stood by the railings at the schoolyard, watched men go back and forth, and thought about what it would be like. I never wanted to be rich or clever. I just wanted to be satisfied, and amongst the silt and the soot, the satisfaction in the pit. It was expected. We talked of no one else. We didn't even really talk about that. It was a silent conversation, spoken when I was born, before I was born. I wouldn't know how to be anything else. I wouldn't want to be.
The bills need to be paid. There's food to be put on the table. There's not a lot to be certain of in this world. So you hold fast to the things that are clear, that are solid, that can be relied upon. It's my job to look after my family. They're everything to me. And I'm willing to do what's needed to play my part.
My bones ache, but my mind pulses. The world beneath my feet I see in layers that are structured and are mine to excavate. The earth is merely a series of atoms, with untold riches nestled in these layers, which mighty hands and minds can unearth. Through graft, my bones ache. I can feel the pulse in the marrow of them. Every day I push through that ache and start again, and after a while, I can't feel it anymore. Long after my body is still, my mind is pulsing with possibilities and wonders of the earth.
I was never much good at school. All that reading and writing, my teacher used to call me a hopeless case. I just didn't belong there. When I took my books home full of red pen, my mum used to shake her head. What will become of him, she'd say. But my dad would look up from his paper when a head was turned and give me a wink. It'll be alright, he'd say. First time I went down the pit, I knew why he was so sure. There was a place where I belonged. I knew what I had to do and I was good at it. I was a miner and I was proud of it.
There is evidence of mining in the Silton area of Barnsley, dating back over 400 years. In 1491, the monks of Pontefract Priory bought Barnsley pulpit for £8 and had it running for 16 years. The king owned all the coal land in England prior to 1688, although the monarchy often granted mining rights to other people. Coal was needed as a domestic fuel by the late 17th century and was also used in trades such as the breweries, furnaces and smithies.
There was sufficient coal under Barnsley to supply the town and to transport elsewhere, and a proper transport network was required for this. By the start of the 20th century, coal was the town's main industry, and by 1910, Barnsley had 4 rail lines and 2 canals.
Barnsley's place in the coal mining industry was prominent until the mid-1940s, when the seam started to be mined out. But sadly, during its years of prime activity and prominence, was clouded by tragedy and loss.
The year 1914 is famous for so many tragedies, so many brave men, so many battles with odds set entirely against heroes, but there are some which aren't so widely known. The tragedies of the coalfield, rather than the battlefield, are perhaps forgotten by the wider world, but not by the communities that feel them still.
Risk can be measured by man.
It's our finest survival tool.
Risk is governed by our intelligence and instinct.
Risk pulls in the pit of your stomach and sits there, unsettling all we place on top of it, churning your hope and faith, posing questions that become insipid on the tongue, leaving a burning bitterness until we say out loud,
It's too much of a risk.
All men commit a risk, but we will be foolish if naively thought that all men would give equal respect to it.
For some men, whose choices are limited, whose needs are greater, men whose way of life is far below the sunlight.
Those men, their risks are measured only after their heart stops beating.
For someone who is not a miner, it's impossible to understand how man can place his life in the walls of the earth. A man who knows that what was once the walls of his livelihood can become his final blanket.
In the stomachs of these men you'll find honour alongside risk, and the knowledge that some risks, like life, cannot be measured. That hope and faith can stay the bitterness from your tongue, and help you accept that you are part of something bigger than yourself.
Risk can be measured by man. It's our finest survival tool. But it's a foolish man who believes risk is equal. On the 30th of May 1914, there was a terrible accident, an unforeseen gas explosion leaving 12 men dead, most of them husbands. So many women, no longer wives, but grieving widows. It left 24 children without fathers. The only thing to be thankful for was that only 50 minutes earlier, 108 men had been working that section of the mine. For those it affected, it was little consolation.
We used to go dancing on Friday night. He'd come back from the pit and spend an hour in the bath, soaking the colours from his skin and the aches from his muscles. With his clean pressed shirt on, it looks like he did on our wedding day. He'd always been the man of my dreams. We would walk to the club arm in arm and spend the night in each other's arms, dancing together. It was a world away from our weekday life. He would hold me close and I knew that I was the luckiest woman in the world. It wasn't the same after the accident. We stopped going. Friday nights turned into our night in together. I still had my man to love and hold and dance with, but it didn't feel as good to be lucky anymore because there were too many of us that weren't.
The under-manager and other officials were in the pit at the time of the explosion, and news of the disaster was quickly sent to the surface, together with a request for help. Rescue workers were at once assembled.
The colliery possesses its own rescue brigade and sets of special breathing apparatus are kept on his premises. These were taken down, but it was no longer required to use them. The ventilation was short-circuited, and in a short time, the atmosphere became clear enough for the rescuers to descend the mine without taking special precautions. The bodies were brought to the surface and placed in the joint shaft.
A 19-year-old son died alongside his father, related by blood, united by sacrifice.
The 13th of May, 10 minutes to 2 in the afternoon. That time, that date, those numbers, that imprinted in my mind. We had words, about him going down. His father never wanted him in the pit. I insisted it was his choice. My boy would took way longer. He would walk through the door and bring the whole world in with him. He had this line of freckles on the edge of his nose. We buried them the same day. In the end, it was the only way he would relent. He said he could go down as long as he worked alongside him. So that's what they did. Day in, day out, man and boy. They worked cheek by jowl. When they were carried out, the foreman insisted they were laid together. I found them cooked together. My loves, I wanted to wash the soot from his face to see the freckles. My loves, gone. My heart stopped that day. It grieved for both of them. My loves.
The jury returned the following verdict on the deaths of the men. The 12 men lost their lives by an explosion of coal dust caused by the stoppage and restarting of the fan with a defective coal-cutting machine running at the face, causing ignition. The jury are of the opinion that the whole of the management have been very negligent, but not criminally so. The jury trust that the Home Office will give instructions so that the management will be more careful in the future.
Be more careful in the future. We can only hope. Over a dozen lost, and all they could write was be more careful in the future. Sons, fathers, grandfathers, the 20 injured. Some of them would wear scars for the rest of their lives. And in the paper, the ones that would litter the street and wrap up your fish and chips tomorrow as tomorrow's news takes over. The message, be more careful in the future, is the only comment. The wreaths, the undertakers, the sea of mourners, thick and vast, immortalise brave men, and the ones that treat this news as a paycheck get away with saying, be more careful in the future. Only the year before, on the 21st of April, another accident happened that nobody had anticipated. This time at Barnsley Main Colliery. 4 lives were lost. 3 died instantly, and another later in hospital. Again, so sudden and unexpected. Rock falling, families grieving, wondering how such a thing had happened.
Dark, hollow passage, with the smell of damp, tangy soil and filled carts laid where they crashed, where they had been violently flung against the walls. Others were upside down, wheels still spinning. 4 men looking at the scene in front of them. Knowing what must be done, they started to clear it, upturning carts and moving them out. A sudden rumbling filled the passage. Instantly they looked up. Silence. And then
4 fatalities. 4 early graves.
When I hear these sad stories of a century ago, I wish that I had been there, wish I could change what happened.
If I could reach back through the years, I would.
Tell them they were important and to spend every moment with their loved ones.
Offer comfort to their families.
Tell them to stay at home.
Check the roofs and the machines and the rope and the timber. But
As we stand here, in this place, in this time,
We will honour the miners by telling their stories.
All the mines in Barnsley are closed, and the last one to close was Goldthorpe in 1994. The stories of mining in Barnsley are our fathers and mothers, our grandparents and great-grandparents,
Our great-great-grandparents.
a legacy that spans a century and beyond. The details of their day-to-day lives forgotten in the huge tide of time since they lived and worked.
Loved and lost.
braved and battled in their life and graft.
But their place in our own history, in the history of this community and the rich history of mining.
Is integral to who we are.
Where we came from and what we will become.
we are proud to celebrate their lives.
And remember them in death.
It is part of the here and now as much as the time that is past.